Hello and a very good day everyone. So today we will learn on Power Query. Basically, if you look carefully in this particular file, we do have series of data in a database. So basically in this particular database, if we look carefully, our data, our particular cell, we do have a lot of information. In other words, we have too much of data concentrated in one particular cell. If we look here carefully, we do have the name, we do have the father's name, house number, age and gender. All this information is concentrated in one particular cell, and we also have other data which has the similar situation. So basically what is my requirement is I want to separate this information into 5 different columns. So how I want to separate this data from a concentrated in one particular cell into 5 different columns. So let's get started. So in this video I will explain on how we can use Power Query to separate this data into 5 different columns. So what I need to do is, the first thing is I need to press Ctrl A. So once I press Ctrl A, it will highlight the entire table. And then what I need to do is, I will go to Data Ribbon, I'll go to the section of Get and Transform Data. And then I will click the icon of From Table/Range. So once I click the icon, you will notice that a small box will appear. So what I'll do is, I will untick my table as header and I press OK. So once I press OK, you will notice that we will be navigated to Power Query Editor. So in this Power Query Editor, it is where we will do the massaging and whatnot. So the first step is, what I need to do is, instead is appearing on 3 separate columns, I need to put it into one column. So how to do it is, the first step is I'll go to Add Column and I click Index Column. So here we do have the sequences. So basically we are using this as a dummy column so that we can press right click and then we go to Unpivot Other Columns. So when we unpivot other columns, so the other columns will be transposed into a column format. So what we can do is, basically we can remove these 2 columns and delete. So basically we can actually make this column remain. But if you look here carefully, we have all the information concentrated in one cell. So we need to separate the data. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to Custom Column, and then what I will do is, I'll go to Custom Column, a box will appear and I'll put here name. So I'll put here name and then I'll put here text between delimiters, and then this is the value is the column. So the column, and then after that the starting delimiter is apostrophe name semicolon and then comma apostrophe father's name and then apostrophe close bracket. There you go, and then I press OK. So basically right now we are capturing the first name, but however as we scroll down, we notice that it doesn't capture, because some data doesn't capture, because instead of father's name it has the husband name. And some data, as you can see over here, it not only has husband name, some cases it also have the mother's name as well. As we can see over here in this particular example, we do have mother's name. So now in this case, how we are going to do it? Well, in this case what we are going to do is, we are going to use the if then else formula. So what I'm going to do is, I'll just click here again. So here we can use this if all the data has father's name. But as we notice over here, some data they have the husband's name, they also have the mother's name. So what I'm going to do is, I'll just put here if and then text contains. Okay, so if the text contain, and then here what's the text, so I'll just put here as a column and then I'll put here father. So if the text has the word father, then it should be having this party showing this information. Otherwise what I'm going to do is, I'll just put here enter and then I'll put here enter, else if text contains. So if they say it contains the word husband, and then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to press here then and then text between delimiters, and then I'll put here value, and then I'll put here name semicolon comma husband's name, and then close bracket, and then else, and then wait, just put here else, and then text between delimiters, and then value, and then name, and then mother's name. And then once you have done this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put here first name. So I'm going to put here first name and I'll press here OK. So now if you look here carefully, it will capture all the first name. So even though, for example, here we have the husband name, it will still capture the first name. And then if just say I go to row number 50, even though there is mother's name, so it'll still capture the first name. So now what I'm going to do is I just want to copy this formula. I'll copy all this formula, and then I'll copy this, I press OK, and then I'll do another custom column so that I want to capture the second name. So I'm going to put here custom column, and then I put here second name, and then I'll paste it over here. So this case, if just say it contains father, so instead of father's name, okay, I want the house number. Okay, the same thing goes here. So instead of husband's name, so here I'll put house number, and then here mother's name, and I'll put here house number, and then there you go. So what I'm going to do is I just want to put here OK, so that it will capture the second name. So now if you look here carefully, here we have the father's name, and then here also we have the husband name. So if you look here carefully on row number 50, we will also have the mother's name as well. So now we have the first name and also the second name. So now what I'm going to capture next is basically I want to capture the house number. So if you look here, we have the house number and then we have the age. So I'm going to do the same thing. I just want to copy this formula. Okay, so I'll just copy this, not everything, I'll just copy this data, copy this, and I'm going to press OK. And I'm going to do the same thing, custom column. So this time it is house number, and then I'm going to use this formula of text between delimiters, but it's just house number and age, and then I press OK. So now we have the house number, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to custom column, and then this time I put here age, and then I'm going to put here, so the same thing, but this time it is between the age and gender. So the age and gender, and I'm going to press OK. So now we do have the age as well. Okay, so basically we do have the house number, we do have the age, and then the last one is basically the gender. So if you look over here, the data is very messy because we do have male, female, and then we do have some codes and whatnot. So basically what I want to do is I want to do a conditional column. So if the data contains female, then it should be female, otherwise it should be male. So I'm going to go to conditional column, and then a box will appear. So this one I'll put here gender, and then if the column name, so the column name is value, contains, and then contains the word female, then it should follow. Okay, so basically if it contains a female, then it should be female, otherwise it should be male, and I press OK. So now if you see here, so here we have male, so it has the male, and here we have female, female, so it has female as well. So now this is our data. What I'm going to do is I'll just remove this column. So here if you notice, we do have the first name, second name, house number, age, gender. So what I'm going to do is I want to format the data. So I'll select these three columns by pressing the shift button, then I press control button and select this button, and I want to format the values as text. So now I put this as a text. This one I'll put it as a whole number. So here we have the whole number. So now what I'm going to do is I want to make it consistent, because if you notice carefully, there are certain data which has capital letters. So I'm going to select these two columns, and then what I'm going to do is I will try to go to format, and then I'll try to put capitalize each word. So when I capitalize each word, so all the data looks normal. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press to home and close and load. So once I press close and load, so you will notice now the database has been presented in 5 different columns.